Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adam Smith, and inside this game review and gameplay video, I'm excited to be checking out Earthborne Rangers, a game which released in 2023, and over the last couple of years has been across the solo community talked about. It's been on multiple lists here on the channel as well. It's worth mentioning there was a reprint campaign, which also provided additional content, all this coming from Earthborne Games, and that is actually beginning to deliver right now. So some individuals already have their pledges, others have theirs on the way to them. And so what I wanted to do at this point in time is take you guys back to the base game, as there's going to be a number of new players coming into this one, and I want to take you through a visual of the prologue. As a new player, when you first summon up the base game box, you're going to find a booklet called The Lure of the Valley, and this booklet has in the first few pages a prologue that you can follow step by step. I'm going to be taking you through a full visual of the prologue so you can see it in action if you want to skip that, or you can even follow along by playing on the side while watching this video. Before we begin, let's find out a bit more about the universe we're going to be playing inside of. In the distant future, Earth has healed. Civilization as we knew it has long crumbled, but life endures and it thrives. Humanity now lives in harmony with the natural world, forging new paths alongside sentient animals, resilient plant life, and ancient tech buried beneath the soil. Towering forests blanket the landscape, rivers run clear, and strange, wondrous creatures roam freely. You are a ranger, part explorer, part guardian, part storyteller. Your mission is to journey into the untamed wilds of the rewilded earth, solving mysteries, helping communities, and facing threats that arise in this beautifully unpredictable world. But the line between ally and enemy isn't always clear, and your choices shape not just your story, but the fate of the valley itself. And speaking of the valley, this is the valley map, the region you'll be exploring, and there's lots to do inside of this world. Let's go ahead and take a look at the map, and I'll show you a number of different areas, and I'll also show you where the prologue begins. This is the valley map. It is a vertical map. You're seeing the top half right now, and I will certainly show you the bottom half in just a second, which also includes a legend to help you understand exactly what all these different icons mean. But at a high level, you'll see a number of yellowish icons, which are the major points of interest throughout the land. So, for instance, the Lone Tree Station here, we got white sky next to a massive lake, which feeds through the rest of the valley. You got the northern outpost up top here, the fractured wall, and it keeps on going all the way down. But between those major points of interest, you also have different terrain types that you're going to have to traverse through to get from those major points of interest to another one. So for instance, in the prologue, it's going to have you starting at the Ancestors' Grove, which is right here. And the prologue lets us know, which you'll find out very shortly, that we're supposed to travel to Boulder Field, which is right here. So the connecting path between them is a woods path. Here's a look further south in the valley map. You'll see a number of other points of interest you're going to want to check out in the future. In the bottom right-hand corner, there is the legend I was referring to, which shows all the different types of terrain sets. Again, connecting between each of the locations, which I've been generically calling points of interest, are terrain that you're going to have to traverse through in order to get from one location to another. So for instance, if you were going from Tumbledown here, the furthest south location, and you were heading up here to Bowl of the Sun, you'd be going through a mountain pass. Now for a moment, if you just forget about all the terrain paths that you can see across the map and only focus on the major locations, there are two different types of locations that you'll run across as you go through the game. There's pivotal locations, the ones in yellow, and there's these ones here which are known as non-pivotal, or essentially use a valley set instead. Pivotal locations like Meadow, for example, is going to have notable people and places to seek out or discover on your journey when you go there. So these are going to have specific path cards that are unique to that location that will be added into your path deck. On the other hand, you have Stoneweaver Bridge. This is a non-pivotal location, and so you're never quite sure what or who you're going to encounter at that location. You might find one of the valley's other wanderers while you're there, or features of the valley, or exceptionally dangerous predators there. These different types of locations will certainly add excitement into your journey as you go through the valley. Let's now head into the prologue for Earthborne Rangers, found on page 2 of the Lure of the Valley booklet. As I alluded to at the very beginning of the video, the prologue is going to get you into the game's core concepts to help you understand how the engine actually operates before you actually have to focus more of your attention on your ranger and the deck building aspect of the game, which is where all the fun comes in. This prologue is going to focus on just game concepts in terms of how things flow and operate, and that's exactly what I'll be showing you here. So just so you know, you're not going to see the full-fledged Earthborne Rangers experience inside this prologue video, as again, this is just meant as a onboarding experience The other benefit to the prologue is the fact that you'll get introduced to cards and their synergies and how things work together and what doesn't work together, so that when you get to the end of the prologue, the game will allow you to rejig your ranger and the deck in order to re-deck build, essentially, to restructure based on the things you learned in the prologue before you dive into your first campaign. Imagine a low fire burning in the pre-dawn light. Imagine you're wrapped in a warm cloak, breathing cool mountain air. You smell the smoke from the fire and the rich scent of pine. Last night you swore your oaths to the ancestors, to the elders, and to the spirit of the valley. The sun begins to rise on your first day as a ranger, a caretaker of the land, and a friend to its people. You watch as Elder Thrush retrieves her condenser kettle from a low branch, checks the water level, then places it onto the fire. As the water rises to boil, Calypsa, the ranger who has mentored you for the past 9 months, sets about crushing dried marrow leaf for tea in plain carbon-forged cups. Once it's ready, she hands you a cup. Steam pours off of it. It smells of the forest. Calypsa raises her cup to your true self. She drinks, and you follow suit. The tea invigorates you, warmth spreading throughout your body. It feels amazing. Your eyes are drawn to the flame. As you watch, your eyes unfocus. You hear the voices of your ancestors. You can feel them with you. You can feel their support and their love. You hear them speak, and they remind you of your best qualities, the person you truly are. Who are you? And this leads us right into character creation, starting in the prologue with the aspect cards. There are 12 aspect cards. Once you have them, you'll notice on them there are 4 core abilities. You've got awareness in green, spirit in yellow, focus in blue, and fitness in red. You're going to go ahead and choose one of these cards for each ranger. Now I'm playing true solo, so I just need one of these for my ranger that I'm creating. And at this point, you're not going to know much beyond the ability name, so just choose one. Again, the higher the value, the more effort you're going to have inside of that particular ability when it comes to using it. So you want to choose which one you maybe want to be weakest in, which ones you want to be average in, and which one you want to be strongest in. There's different combinations of 1 through 3 across all of the cards, so there's lots of variation to choose between. For myself, I'm going to probably go ahead with this one right here. Once you've chosen your aspect, go ahead and place it in the bottom left-hand corner of your play area. Essentially, the values on the aspect card are going to provide you with resources, which will be represented by tokens, or if you have the deluxe token set, wooden tokens, which will sit based on the numerical value in each of the 4 different sections. If you want to be able to hike through the valley or defend yourself against dangerous predators using a weapon, you should choose fitness as your highest aspect, which is in red. If you'd like to be able to easily converse and get along with people in the valley you run into, or if you want to form deep connections with the natural world, you should choose spirit in yellow as your high aspect. If you'd like to be able to expertly solve a multitude of problems and handle situations which require great concentration or great insight, or potentially both of those, you should choose focus as your highest aspect. And lastly, if you'd like to be able to avoid the valley's many dangers and easily explore the environment, you should choose awareness as your high aspect. And I've gone with awareness at 3. Now, if you're controlling more than one ranger, or you have multiple people around the game table controlling rangers, you're going to choose a lead ranger, and the lead ranger will go first in choosing an aspect card. It'll go clockwise around with everyone selecting one for their ranger. Now, if you're playing solo like I am, it's recommended to take a fitness value of 2 or higher. Let's now move on to personalities. Find the personality deck and break it into the 4 different aspects by color as well, if you know them from the aspect card we just did moments ago. If you don't, you'll also see an abbreviation for each of them. To the left of each of the cards, you'll see 1 awareness here, 1 fitness, 1 focus, 1 spirit. We'll talk about what the value of 1 means in just a moment. Inside of each of these decks, there are 8 cards. There are 4 unique cards in each deck, but there's a duplicate of each of them for a total of 8 across each of the decks. Now, something that might have popped out to you already, in the center of the card are approach icons. You'll see examples of all 4 of them across the cards right now, but you'll see as we dive into each individual deck, they're all represented. So you can see for this one here, Insightful has this approach icon, Passionate has this one, and then you go across the row. Now, what do these icons mean? Well, when it comes to common tests, which is something you'll be doing inside of the game, these approach icons are going to help you in succeeding in tests depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So you'll see the common test card right here. It says if you're doing a fitness test, then you're going after this compass-like icon. And if you have that compass-like icon, which you can find right here, then you're going to be able to add a success into your test on top of whatever you commit from fitness. Again, fitness would come from your aspect card. So I would end up having 2 resources on here. I could commit 2 resources and this symbol right here in order to go into a test with 3 to try and traverse. Each of the approach icons has an actual name for its icon. So this one right here, which looks like a triangle, is reason. This one here with a heart is known as connection. This one with the compass is known as exploration. And the final one there at the end is conflict. As you choose personality cards for your deck, the mix of approach icons we just went over in your deck are going to represent your ranger's proclivities to certain things. So in this stage right now in the prologue, don't get caught up too much on what you're putting in. My recommendation is to try your best to get at least cards from each of the different approach icons into your deck so you can kind of see how they all interact with the different tests you'll be doing as you go through the game. And then eventually you can start leaning a little bit more towards one versus another, and you'll start to find the ones that work best for you. And of course, you can retailer your deck at the end of the prologue as well. We are going to choose a unique set of 2 cards from each of the different aspects. We'll start with the aspect awareness, which is all the green cards we have here. So again, you can select this based on the title, if it interests you, based on the approach icon that interests you, or even based on the flavor text or the rulings on the cards themselves. A couple of things to be aware of. You'll see here, for example, on Thorough, there are 2 approach icons, which means you're going to get much more in terms of successes off using this card than the others. But it does come with a requirement, which is the second thing I want to point out. You'll see the requirement is 2 awareness, which means on the stat value of your actual aspect card, you need to make sure you have a stat value of 2 awareness or higher to even take this card. So for example, if I chose an aspect card that had an awareness of 1, I would not be able to take this set of cards. I would just go ahead and flip them over for the time being. They wouldn't even be included in part of the selection here. But as I have 3, I can easily include these ones if I wish. I'm going to choose to go with the card Perceptive. I'll be taking both of these. By selecting this personality card here, I gave myself the approach icon Exploration. So now we're going to take that one out of the equation as I want to get 1 from each of the approach icons. So I'm not going to be selecting this one right here. I'm going to be focusing on either Passionate, Balanced, or Bold. And again, I'm doing this because I want my personalities and their approach icons attached to actually be very balanced across the board to help me with tests. So let's actually go ahead with the balanced one here. And this is known as the Conflict approach icon. Let's now move into the next aspect for the personality cards. This one is Focus in blue, and we've got 4 different unique sets here. Now, the one I'm eyeing right now, of which I don't have yet, would be this one here or this one here. And I have the requirement stat-wise to actually go after that, as I have 2 in that stat. So maybe this is the right time to grab it. The final set of personality cards, these belonging to the Spirit aspect, and you'll see based on my wonderful stat of 1 for Spirit, I'm not able to take this one here on the far right at all, as the requirement for it is 2, which it states right on it, but I could go after any of the other ones, and as I've been trying to get 1 of every approach icon, let's go with Engaging. With all my personality cards selected for my Ranger, 2 for each of the 4 unique cards here shown, I'm going to go ahead now and shuffle this deck of 8 to create my Ranger deck. Again, this is a very pared down version of what the final version of a Ranger deck will look like. With the deck all shuffled up, we're going to go ahead and place it in the Ranger deck location on the playmat. We'll be going through a round of play before we build out the Ranger deck even further. Now we're going to focus on the aspect card over here. We're going to place energy tokens based on the different values in each of the different sections of this card. The base game includes tokens for this card, but if you have the deluxe wooden tokens, you can use those like I have here. Now let's focus on setting up the play area of where we're actually going to be adventuring. So it's telling us now to grab the Ancestors Grove, Boulder Field, and Lone Tree Station cards. They look like this. And we're going to be placing the Ancestors Grove card up where it states location right here. The other 2 cards are going to go off to the side for now. With our current location in place, and we know we're trying to progress to get to Boulder's Field. In order to get there, as we saw on the map earlier in the video, there was the terrain type woods, which showed green trees. So we have to find that specific woods set of cards inside the base box. And these cards are known as path cards. They look like this on the back side. And you'll know you have the wood set as you can see the woods icon in the top left-hand corner. So you're going to grab every single card, as you can see here, which is going to comprise the entirety of the terrain for the woods for the prologue. You're going to take all these, but you're going to remove any that have a presence of 3. So this card's actually going to end up in the discard pile. We're not going to be dealing with this as part of the prologue. We're going to shuffle the rest of them, and that's going to make our woods path deck. Think of the path deck as being the types of terrain and features and things you're going to find as you traverse through that specific type of terrain. However, for the prologue, it's specific to just the woods. You're going to find that each time you travel to a new location in the campaign, you're going to be building a new path deck using cards from multiple sets combined. Next, you're going to find the weather card called A Perfect Day. You'll be placing this in the weather area of the playmat, or if you don't have the playmat, just at the top to the left of the location. So we're going to go ahead and just flip it over to the other side. So you can see on the opposite side, it has midday sun. So the weather will change as you go through the game, and there's more weather cards than this. And of course, this is the nicer one. There are others which will cause you a bit more of a struggle. Now, the thing to be aware of on the card is it states 3 clouds on the right-hand side of this card, so don't miss that. You're going to be placing 3 counters on this card to represent clouds as time passes on the perfect day. These general tokens could be used, or you could replace them for a die if you wish to tick things down that way. Now, just above where the weather card is sitting is what's known as a challenge deck. You're going to find those cards, again, find it based on the back of the card looking like what you can see on the playmat there. Shuffle those cards together and place it right where it states challenge deck. As you go through the challenge deck, you'll have a challenge discard you can place cards inside of. The challenge deck is twofold in that it's going to have impacts potentially to your test. Sometimes it won't, sometimes it will. Sometimes it'll be positive, sometimes it'll be negative, other times it'll be neutral. And then there's going to be an effect that is going to trigger, and you're going to check cards starting from the furthest out thing, which is going to be the location, and then working back towards yourself. You'll see how the challenge card throws an icon at you that will cause the world to shift and change in real time, which is very cool, starting with the location at the very top, then working down to along the way section right here, and then to within reach. The last couple things to do for setup before we dive into gameplay for the prologue is to get the Common Test reference card. You'll definitely want this nearby and handy, as it shows you the 4 basic common tests you can always take, so long as when you do the test in question, if it was a fitness one for example, you have at least 1 energy to spend to do that test. If you have no energy in a given aspect and you're trying to do the test with a color-coded, as you can see it says fitness there in red, if you don't have any energy in this area, you cannot do that particular test. Also, once you have spent 1 energy from this area to do a fitness test, in this example, you can then add those approach icons that tie into this specific aspect to try to boost your success. Last but not least is the round structure reference card. You don't need to place this one on your playmat. You can actually have it off to the side, as the prologue is going to guide you through how things are run. But as you get into the campaign and as you get into your first rounds of major play, certainly keep this nearby until this becomes second nature. Now, the card we placed in the location position, the Ancestors' Grove, on the opposite side has arrival instructions. It tells us a few keywords underneath the header. It states it's a location, a forest, and trail. There's also some narrative text to read from 15 in the campaign book. We're not going to read this as part of the prologue. The prologue has its own separate narrative, but when you actually interact with this during a campaign, you will go to any entry that you run into if you ever see this icon numerical value as you go through gameplay. We're going to skip it for now in the prologue, though, but the arrival setup says to search the path deck for the next card with a presence of 3 and discard it. I already went ahead preemptively and did this, but the one thing we haven't done yet as the lead ranger is to search the path deck for the next prey and put it into play. Drawing from the top of the path deck, the first card we ran into is a Sitkabuk, and this thing is definitely in the prey category. As you can see the keyword prey up top. Now, besides the fact we know it's coming from the woods terrain or the woods set, you can see in the top left-hand corner there's an arrow underneath it pointing down. This is important in terms of where it's going to come in. If the arrow is pointing up on the card, it's going to be in the along the way area. If the arrow is pointing down, it's within reach. The buck is now positioned. Up top here, we have what's known as the surroundings. Now, I talked about this area before being the location. The location and the weather make up the surroundings. So essentially, we are at Ancestors' Grove right now. The weather is a perfect day, and so we are in the surrounding area, and we're trying to travel, which is going to have us moving elsewhere, trying to get to Boulder Field, and that's going to have us run into things along the way, and things are going to come up right in front of us within reach, which we have the buck here. So in order to get away from the Grove and head to Boulder Field, we have to place progress directly on Ancestors' Grove. And that progress is going to be equal to the value you can see on the right-hand side of the Ancestors Grove card that states 4R, which means 4 progress for every ranger. I'm playing solo, so we just need 4 progress on this card to be able to travel to the Boulder Field. Your eyes refocus, and Calypsa smiles warmly. It is time, she says. As of this morning, I am no longer your mentor. Like you, I am a ranger. She speaks briefly with Elder Thrush, douses the fire, then turns to you. We will travel from here to Boulder Field. I'll stay back and follow your lead. With the overview, setup, and the goal known, we're going to dive into gameplay right now for the prologue, starting with the round structure card. It tells us right at the very top of that card that we're going to deal with path cards first. Each ranger is going to draw 1 path card, so I've got 1 coming to me. Off the top of the deck, I got myself an Overgrown Thicket. It's a feature, flora, it's an obstacle. Obstacles are not good. You'll see the arrow is pointing upwards, though. The Overgrown Thicket ends up along the way, so now we have something within reach and along the way before we even try to go after the location. Now, why this is important is because each one of these things represents presence, and the presence of that thing is in the top right-hand corner of 1 and 1. So if we want to take a test that allows us to gain progress right on the location, which is the goal we're going after, we are going to have to take what's known as fatigue because we have something within reach and something along the way, both of which are active. If they happen to be exhausted, they do not count their presence and they do not throw their value in for fatigue. But at this point, both of them would throw a total together of 2 fatigue. And that means 2 cards off the top of my ranger deck going into the fatigue stack. So if I made a test to make progress on the location right now, just looking at the presence alone, I'd be taking 2 fatigue off the deck and placing them into the fatigue stack. But there's actually a keyword, very important one, sitting on the Overgrown Thicket card that's worth checking out. You'll see this card has a keyword called obstacle, and as you'll find at the back of the rulebook, an obstacle prevents you from being able to take a test on anything beyond that particular card. Beyond would mean anything in the surroundings area, because as of right now, this is along the way. So it's blocking anything I'd like to do going into the surrounding area. So I would not be able to take a test to place progress on the location until I either discard this card completely and get rid of it, or I exhaust it so it's not an issue. Now, currently with the deck of cards I have for my ranger, I don't have something that I can exhaust it with. If I had a card that had dodge, for instance, I could try to use that in order to exhaust the card. But because I don't have it, I have to go after things using the values on the right-hand side here. The value there in white with the R beside it in light blue, very similar to the location we talked about earlier, is all about progress. As long as we place 2 progress, because I only have 1 ranger, if it was 2 rangers, it would be 4 progress. In this case, it's 2, but if I place 2 on it, this card is discarded and no longer would have its obstacle keyword stopping me from interacting with the location, trying to place progress on that. So I'm going to want to deal with this one for sure. Now, I've also technically got the buck here in front of me, but the buck's not stopping me from actually going any further yet. So let's focus on dealing with the thicket first. Now, instead of going down the progress path, we also have the option to go after this thing on the harm side of the equation, being a bit more aggressive. If we do this, we need 3 in order to make it happen. The progress icon in the game is represented by this icon right here, and the harm icon in the game is represented by this icon here. Now, speaking of the Ranger deck, I went ahead and drew up 6 cards at the very beginning of the round before we drew that path card that brought out the Overgrown Thicket. I'll show you the 6 cards I have in hand. There's no surprises here. We know they're personality cards right now because it's a thinned out Ranger deck, but this is what I have to work with. Now, in an effort to try and deal with the Overgrown Thicket first, because of this wonderful keyword obstacle, I'm going to bring it down here. It is sitting along the way, but I brought it down here so it's easier to see. I could go after this one of 2 ways. I could go for the test that's on the thicket, which is an awareness test in green, which means I have to commit at least 1 energy in order to do the test in the first place. Then I can use exploration icons from my cards if I have any, of which I have actually 2 in hand, to add into it. Or, of course, I can commit more energy into the equation, and of course, that's going to increase my odds of success. So what I might do is I might actually put 2 in, keeping 1 so I can do another one of these later on. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put these 2 into the equation. Now, this might be mass overkill because using these 2 cards gives me 1 each on top of the 2, which might be more than I need. Inside the challenge deck, you're going to see things like 0, -1, +1. There's also a -2 in there as well. And I honestly think this is a great pairing because you'll see the perceptive card here says after you've succeeded a test in which you committed this attribute, gain 1 awareness. So if we succeed at this, I'm going to end up gaining back awareness 2 times over, which will bring back the 2 that I would have otherwise lost. So these cards are really helpful that way in this particular instance, but I'm going in with 2 committed energy, 2 from these icons right here for a total of 4 energy going into it. From the top of the challenge deck, we now draw and resolve a card specific to the aspect that we used for the test. In this case, awareness, which is going to be top left, and it's a 0. So basically nothing changes across what I committed, which is 4, which means that we easily can place the 4 progress on the card, and it's going to be way past more than what we need to deal with this one. Doing things in order, we're going to first resolve the test. So we can see here it's going to tell us for every one of the effort points we put in, which was a total of 4, we get 1 progress, which will be 4, which is well beyond what we need. So we're not even going to bother place progress tokens on the card because we're not trying to accumulate it to a high value. We easily got it right here and there at 2. So because of that, this card is going to get discarded into the path discard. And that discard is just to the right of the path deck at the very top there. Now we've got 2 other cards that we used in this equation, but we're also going to make sure we resolve the successful results at the bottom. It says after you succeed at a test, which we did, in which we committed this attribute, we gain 1 awareness. So we gain 1 for this, we gain 1 for this. That brings back the 2 we used, normally the ones we would spend if we didn't have these cards in this equation, and we'd only committed these 2 into the equation, and we got the 0. This still would have been a pass, but these 2 tokens would have actually sat off to the side. Because we played these 2 cards, we're going to actually regain them right now. Then we place those 2 cards into the discard pile, and that's it. But don't forget and don't get too excited to throw the challenge card into the discard. Why? Because at the very bottom of every challenge discard is a symbol or icon. This is where the challenge deck is going to create ripple effects within the world we're playing in. So we're going to start at the very top, which is surroundings, to see if there's any sun icons. And there is on the location card. So we resolve from top down, first with the surroundings row, then the along the way, and then within reach. As it states right here on Ancestors Grove, it says choose a card from your range or discard and place it on top of your fatigue stack. An unfortunate thematic effect there, the sun beating down on us as we tried to traverse through the thicket ended up causing us some fatigue. So because of that, we choose one of the cards in our discard, but both of them are exactly the same, so not much of a choice there really. We're going to place this top one here in there. Now, what does that mean? Let's talk about that in a second. First, let's talk about the Ranger deck and what happens during the prologue when it runs out. If it runs out during the prologue, you simply just reshuffle your discard pile back into your deck and continue onwards. Now, within a given day, you might think all the fatigue that is sitting in your fatigue stack is stuck there forever, but there is a soothing technique you can do with the fatigue in order to draw cards from the stack of fatigue back into your hand. Let's go back to resolving the challenge effect. We did this one up here, but we continue down to along the way. There's nothing here to resolve, coming down to within reach, and the buck has the sun icon. It states right on it, if there's another active buck, which means one that is upright like this, not exhausted like this, as some can become, it's going to exhaust the being. Well, that's not going to happen. And then it says it's going to add 2 harm to both this and the other buck. Within this effect, you'll also see a small arrow between the 2 sentences. And what that means is that if you succeed at the very first portion, then you have to do the second portion as well. So you'll never do the second portion if you didn't succeed at the first. So in this case, nothing's happening. The challenge card is fully resolved at this point, goes to the challenge discard up there by the challenge deck, and we continue with Ranger turns. Again, so long as I have the ability to spend energy and to actually do tests and try and accomplish things, I still have time to spend. Now, at this point, I could go a couple different ways. I could choose to deal with the buck potentially, or I could try to go past the buck now because the obstacle is gone, and this is not an obstacle, this is just prey, and I could focus on actually putting progress up there, but I would have to take the 1 fatigue because of the presence value of 1 of this buck. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pretend like the buck is not there, although it does hit me for its presence. So 1 fatigue means off the Ranger deck, we are losing 1 card, which goes right into the fatigue stack. I'm going to do a fitness traverse test here, which is a common test. So I'm going to go ahead and commit 2 red into the equation. And I have absolutely no explore because I used it on the prior one there to deal with the thicket. So at this point, I'm just going in with 2. But it appears the challenge deck was with me as I get a +1 on my result, which means it ends up being a 3, which is very close to the 4 that I needed. So I already took the fatigue for going through the buck. I've got 3 right here. So this is going to turn into 3 progress going on the location. As I have the deluxe components, I'm using the progress die here. I'm going to mark this as a 3. I'm going to throw it on the location. The energy I committed is no longer usable. It's off to the side at this point. The common test is now done. And at this point, we take a look for this effect across the cards, starting from top to bottom. There's nothing up at the very top for location, but there is something here for the buck. It says, if there is an active doe, the buck changes. And then it says to suffer an injury. Lucky for me, there's no doe in play, otherwise the buck would get very mad and try to hurt me. In this case, we're now going to go ahead and discard this card into the challenge discard, but first you'll notice a new icon on this card. Whenever you see this one, it's telling us to go ahead and shuffle the challenge deck with the challenge discard. In other words, replenish the entire deck. Now, besides the icon in the bottom right-hand corner reminding you any single time you see a -2 on a card, no matter what aspect it's for. So even though we were testing for the red one, and that's all my eyes were focused on, if you ever see a -2 on the card, that card is guaranteed to have the shuffle icon on it in the bottom right. So the second you see a -2 or the icon in the bottom right, just make sure to remember to reshuffle the challenge deck. Now let's determine if we want to do anything more. Now at this point, I'm looking through my cards. I have no way to put any more progress on the location. Sometimes the location card itself will specify that you can actually go ahead and use a spirit test to place progress, but it has to specify it on the location. Otherwise, you have to do the fitness traversing, which I don't have the ability to do anymore because I don't have at least one of these energy tokens sitting in here anymore. I could do some focusing because I have blue, which allow me to remember and draw cards, but that would deplete my deck, and I don't really want to do that just yet either. The only thing that's left for me to do potentially is to go ahead and try to avoid the buck. So let's go ahead and do it. We're going to go ahead and spend 2 right now in order to avoid the buck. And then we're going to go ahead and see if we have anything we can add into it just to make it better. No, we do not. So we're going to go in with the 2. Now, in order to avoid this, it's avoid X. And X is equal to the presence of the card that we're trying to avoid, which is 1. So right now we've got it, but the challenge deck might change things. So let's see how it goes. And it actually took 1 away, but because we committed 2, we still got it. So this buck is going to get exhausted, which means we're now not going to take a fatigue if we go straight to the location trying to put progress on in the future. We have to change, or we have to go ahead and deal with this effect right now, which does not occur in the surroundings or along the way. Now coming down to within reach, the buck has the same symbol as what's on the challenge card for its effect, but because this card is exhausted currently, there's no challenge effect happening. Now at this moment, normally when we're playing the campaign, we would move from the ranger turns to travel and then refresh, but it tells us in the prologue not to do this at this point because it's going to further build out our decks and provide additional learning. So now we have a better sense of how we interact with the game. We're going to choose our background. The background represents the formative years of your ranger's life, where they grew up, their occupation, and how they spent their time before they took on greater responsibilities in the valley. We have the 4 background decks here, starting with the Artesian on the far right, Forager, then Shepherd, and then finally on the far left, Traveler. Each background set contains 18 cards with 2 copies each of 9 unique cards. You're going to place the sets in the center of the play area as I have right now, and because I'm the only ranger in play, I'm going to choose one to use. I'm choosing the Traveler, which I recommend if you're looking for one that is going to be the best for the onboarding experience. There are other ones which will provide medium and higher levels of difficulty in terms of what they can offer you, but the Traveler is a great first one to choose when you're just learning the ropes. Out of all the Traveler cards, I get to select 5 unique cards, taking both cards within the set. When I add them into my deck, the only thing to remember is that you want to check your stats on your aspect card to make sure you have the required value in stat in order to actually take the card. Based on my aspect card, I have 3 in awareness, I have 2 in fitness, I have 2 in focus, and I have 1 in spirit. The 1 in spirit is going to limit me from taking the meditation pillow down here. So to simply remind myself to not take those, just flip it over to the opposite side. They're going to end up going back into the appropriate slot in the box based on the dividers when we're done. So for now, I'm choosing 5 between the different sets of cards here. I've chosen Eagle Eye, Paths We've Roamed Before, Strider, Perfect Recall, and Iron Wool Boots. And now what's going on with the boots I really like is the fact that when it's equipped in your equipped area, which is actually underneath of all these cards right here based on the playmat, when it's equipped as a response after you play a moment card, you get to soothe a fatigue. That's going to be great. Getting a card from a fatigue stack into my hand, getting it back is awesome. Whenever I play a moment card would be any of these because the keyword moment is right here for Eagle Eye, it's here for Paths We've Roamed Before, and it's also over here for Perfect Recall. But I'm putting 6 of those moment cards in my deck to make sure I'm making a nice synergy between those and the boots. Now, before we selected our background, there was some flavor text to read inside the prologue. It states, as you walk beneath the shade of a long-limbed oak, you think back to your youth, living and playing in the villages and wild spaces of the valley. A light breeze cools your skin and it conjures a memory of your apprenticeship. You had finished your first day's work, sweat cooling on your skin, overlooking the silver fin, its water sparkling with the colors of sunset. You stood at a moment of promise. Now, as a newly sworn ranger, you stand at another, by the lessons learned in your youth. So that flavor text leads us right into the background of cards we just selected to add into our Ranger deck. We're now told to take our hand, our Ranger deck, and discard, but not the fatigue stack, and shuffle them together with your chosen background cards and place your deck face down again. You pause to drink some water from your canteen. Voluminous clouds drift lazily overhead. You see Calypsa emerge from the trees and walk down the trail towards you. Let's walk together for a while, she says. I need to share some last bits of wisdom with you. It may be some time until our paths cross again out here in the wild. Before we build the rest of the deck, we're going to continue playing. This time we're just using the Ranger's personality cards mixed with the background cards all together. The prologue tells us to go to the refresh phase, which is right on the round structure cards. We'll go ahead and read that. It states, refresh, ready all cards. Each ranger regains all energy tokens, so that's on their aspect card, and then draws one ranger card. So instead of following the one ranger card pull for the prologue, we're going to draw cards as if we were starting brand new, so 6 cards. So all of our energy is back here on the aspect card. The buck up here is also going to go back upright again, active, and we're going to draw 6 cards from the top of the deck. We got ourselves Perfect Recall, we got Strider, we have Perceptive, we have Eagle Eye, we have Engaging, I was going to say Endgame, and then another Perfect Recall. And this is when we go into a brand new round, so we're drawing a Path card off the top of the Path deck. I ran into a Prowling Woolhund, which is actually close to me. This is going to be within reach. We'll talk about the Predator in just a moment, but first, when we were inside the refresh phase just moments ago, one thing that also would have happened based on the keyword refresh here on the perfect day is we discard 1 cloud from this card. If there are no clouds remaining, then the card gets flipped. So as of right now, no gameplay impact. I simply just remove this token, and this happens during the refresh phase. We then moved into the Path phase that drew up this Predator. Whenever a new card comes into play, always make sure you read any text that's outside the challenge effects. You can see here it says, if there is another predator in play, this predator comes into play exhausted. Well, that's not the case. There's no other predators, so it's coming in active. Now, the goal that I'm still going after is on the location. I need to put 1 more progress there in order to clear that location to get us away from the grove and to the boulders field. So in order to do this, I'm actually going to take some threat because I'm going to choose to not deal with either of the creatures within reach. So we have 1 here and 2, which means a total of 3 fatigue. Pretty heavy costs for this. And yes, I could absolutely use some cards from my hand right now in order to exhaust some of these, so I'm not taking so much in terms of fatigue hits, but I do want to progress things forward to show you more of this prologue. So 3 of my cards off the top of the deck are going into the fatigue stack. So we're losing this one here, which is Boots, not good, the Astute card, and finally another Astute card. I've got 1 fitness energy going in, as well as 2 of the exploration icons in order to do the traverse, which means I'm going to be trying to travel. 3 is great because the worst card is a -2 in there, which means we'll get the 1 we need. So I got that in the bag. Let's go ahead and resolve the card. And there's a -1, bringing us down to 2, and 2 on top of the 3 we already have up there is a total of 5 progress. So not bad. We got 5 progress marked on here. In order to travel, we're going to have to end off our Ranger turn, but let's continue to resolve the test and the rest of the challenge effects. The energy spent is going to go off to the side. The 2 cards I used as part of the check going into my discard pile. And this right now is going to challenge me with an effect. This effect does not exist up in the surroundings or along the way, but it does exist here. And there are 2 cards within reach. So in this case, I get to choose which one is going to activate first. As I'm the lead ranger, and the only ranger in this case, I'm choosing between the 2 effects in terms of which one is going to activate first. So this one here says, if there's an active doe, the buck is going to charge me. There isn't one, so thank goodness I'm not suffering injury here. So we'll go ahead and resolve that one first, which does nothing. And then this one here, the predator says, if you have 3 or more fatigue, exhaust this being. Well, unfortunately, we have a bunch of fatigue because I just chucked a whole bunch in there. I had 3 from what I just did, but I already had 2 in there already, so I have a total of 5. So this thing's going to exhaust, and that's going to have me suffering an injury. Injuries are not good. They represent danger towards your ranger. If your ranger accumulates too many injuries during a day, they're going to be forced to camp for the night. If a game effect injures your ranger like the one we just had, we're going to place a harm token on the roll card we have and discard all the cards in our fatigue stack. So now all the cards in my fatigue stack are going into my Rangers discard pile. So why does this matter in terms of cards that are in the fatigue stack going into the discard pile? Well, it can hurt my deck efficiency because those fatigue cards are still somewhat accessible during rest phases. Once they're discarded, they're out of circulation until your deck is reshuffled, making it harder to find your best traits, gear, or powers. Next, a harm token is placed on the roll card. We don't have a roll card, and I'm using the deluxe die to represent the one harm that I have right now. Also remember, for each injury you suffer one fatigue when you rest each round. So things can really get nasty in terms of losing cards off your deck. And when you're instructed to heal an injury, you remove one harm from your roll. So you can actually heal away this die out of the equation. Now, after your Ranger suffers their third injury, you must end the day at the end of your current turn, and you add one lingering injury card to your deck from your collection if there is one available to add. So we've now fully resolved this card. We can place this in the challenge discard. As I want to travel right away in order to progress the story because I have enough progress on the location, I'm going to choose to end off my Ranger turn right now, which means we're going to go ahead and rest, which exactly what I talked about moments ago. Because I have one harm on my roll, I'm going to lose one card to fatigue right now. And unfortunately, I lost my boots card, which I was really hoping to find at some point in time. In the travel phase, if the location has progress equal to or exceeding its threshold, you may travel. If you do, you remove all the path cards from the play area, choose a new location, and assemble the path deck for the new location. I've arrived at Boulder Field, and as it states on the card, reduce the presence of all beings in play by 1. So thematically, I'm in an open field here. All the creatures, the beings that are there, are no longer having a high presence as I can see them clear as day. Now we take a look at the back of the card. You'll see there's an icon here telling us to go to the campaign booklet and read entry 14. But again, we're not doing that because we're playing the prologue. In the arrival setup, it says the lead ranger is going to draw one challenge card and do the following based on the challenge icon on that card. So let's go ahead and find out what we get. I got myself a challenge icon of the sun. Let's take a look at the Boulder Field card again and see what that's going to do to us. It says to scout 2 path cards, then draw 1 path card. Now, before we go ahead and scout anything, as it mentioned during the travel phase here, which is what we're currently in the middle of actually resolving, it said first to remove all path cards from the play area. So all the path cards are gone as we transition to Boulder Field. So we've reshuffled the path deck as it's going to stay the exact same, but the creatures that were out here are now no longer a part of the equation. I get to scout 2, which means I draw 2 cards off the top of the path deck. I get to look at them and I can place both of them on top, both of them on the bottom, or one on top or one on bottom, and then I draw 1 card off the top of the deck. So we scouted ahead, we can see an overgrown thicket, yet again, another one of those nasty ones. And then we got Sunberry Bramble. Haven't seen this one yet. It's a feature card. This allows us to use awareness to try to pluck things off of them. I think I'm going to go with this one being on top. We'll throw the overgrown thicket. Actually, you know what? No, actually, we will put the overgrown thicket to the bottom and put this one on top, and we'll draw that one right back up again. You pause to drink some water from your canteen. Voluminous clouds drift lazily overhead. You see Calypsa emerge from the trees and walk down the trail towards you. Let's walk together for a while, she says. I need to share some last bits of wisdom with you. It may be some time until our paths cross again out here in the wild. Now in the top right-hand corner of her card, you can see in yellow writing a little entry that you can read in the campaign booklet. Do not read this as part of this prologue right now. We're going to skip over that. The goal for this round is to clear her by placing significant progress tokens on her. So you can see her progress will be 3 based on 1 ranger. Inside the refresh phase, we're now going to go ahead and get rid of a token off the perfect day, which is representative of a cloud dissipating. We have 1 more cloud left on the perfect day. And then we come down here, we get all of our energy back here. And we'll draw 1 ranger card as it depicts right here in refresh. So we got Strider. We now go into a brand new round, and you can see a Sycamore coming in as part of the path card draw, which ends up in the within reach area based on the arrow pointing down. Now she has a friendly keyword, which means if I try to interact with something between us, in other words, something past her, it's not going to fatigue me. Her presence is not going to be a negative towards me. Now I cannot affect a card that has the friendly keyword with a card that has a weapon trait also, which makes thematic sense. I'm going to try to connect with her using a spirit test. So I've got 1 spirit. It's not much, but it's enough to commit to a test to be able to do the test. So in spending that energy, I'm also adding this connection into the equation. So I've got 2 right now. We need 3. Let's go to the challenge deck and see how things go. And we got a +1. That's awesome. So we got the 3 we need, which is perfect. And that was the last time I went swimming near a latrinal holt. You and Calypsa share a laugh. She takes the helm of your coke between her thumb and forefinger and nods solemnly. You are now a ranger of the valley, she says. You are charged with protecting its people and lending aid to any in need. But while you do, take care to look out for each other. Your fellow rangers will need you, and you will need them. She steps back and smiles. It's time to return to Lone Tree Station. I must go by a different route, but I will see you there. Now, we've had an opportunity to try out some of the cards from the background set, but it's time to choose the specialty of the Ranger. And the Ranger's specialty represents their recent past and their occupation to which they've dedicated themselves prior to joining the Rangers. Before we bring in the specialty cards, let's resolve the test fully. So at this point, this energy is going to be spent. This one is discarded, and you can see here we have a symbol. Now, there's no sun symbol up top. There is a sun symbol here on the buck, and it says if there is another active buck, then you're going to exhaust this being and continue doing other things if you did that. But in this case, there isn't another one, so that's not going to happen. But a reshuffle of the challenge deck is going to happen right now. The 4 specialties include the Artificer here on the left-hand side, the Consolator here, we've got the Explorer, and the Shaper. A great pairing for new players in the game is Traveler with Explorer, so I'm going to choose the Explorer as my specialty. The Explorer specialty has 2 roll cards. You'll pick which one you want, the other will go back to the box, and once you select it, it will go down here in the roll area. I selected the Undaunted Seeker here, which you saw on the card stated to exhaust. When you perform a test, you get to dodge 1 card. Now take a look through your deck. In this case, it's the Explorer deck, and you're going to grab 5 unique cards as well as the duplicate that comes with them. So there's a number of cards to pick from here, but again, remember you have your requirements here based on the stats of your aspect cards. You cannot take cards in which you do not have the stat value for. I've chosen 5 unique cards for my deck, so I got Share in the Valley Secrets. This one is a moment card. I think it'll come in real handy. This one here is a headset, a nice gear card that I think will also come in handy when scouting. This one here is a hiking staff. You can see here that'll actually put some harm on things when you strike. We got Walk With Me over here, a very low-cost Spirit card, which is great because I don't have much going on with Spirit, but it also provides me the icon that I need to kind of lean down that trail. And then last but not least, another moment card, another set that can work well with the boots that I seem to have tossed quite a few times in the last play so far, but a Leaf in the Breeze. This should be a very useful one as well. We now take our hand, Ranger deck, and discard, but not the Fatigue stack yet again, and shuffle them together with the chosen specialty cards to place the new Ranger deck face down. If you chose the Shaper as your specialty, you're going to go through your deck and you're going to find the Conduit card and equip it. But in this case, I didn't choose the Shaper specialty, so we skip past that step. We're now going to the refresh phase. As you can see, I've already gone ahead and regained all my energy, and we're going to drop cards, and instead of just drawing 1, as it states in the prologue, we're going to draw 6 cards. Let's draw our 6 cards to fill out our hand. We start off with Engaging. Next up, we got ourselves, nice, the gear card that we actually got. The weapon is now part of our hand. We got Perfect Recall in here. We have a Leaf in the Breeze. 5th card is Share in the Valley Secrets. And finally, Engaging yet again. I'm almost done the refresh phase, but we have to do a change to the weather, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to make mention, I was inside of the Ranger turn within a round when I was able to clear Calypsa. And so when she was cleared, things progressed inside of the prologue to the refresh step, which was what we're currently resolving. In other words, a rest would have occurred in that time frame. And as I have a harm on me, and as I'm currently injured, I'm going to be taking 1 fatigue right now. So 1's coming off the deck. Now, timing-wise, that would have happened as part of the tail end of the Ranger turns before we went into the refresh phase that we're now resolving. But I just want to keep on top of things because, again, as you transition from the prologue into the actual campaign, these are the things that are going to start affecting you as you go along. Now, during this refresh phase we're inside of right now, we're also going to be taking away the final cloud token. And as it states right here, once there are no more clouds remaining, we're going to flip this card. The weather has now shifted to midday sun, so you can think of every single round in the game as about a 2-hour period. So we've essentially gone through about 6 hours worth of gameplay across the 3 clouds that came off that card, and we're now heading into the midday sun around the 7th to 8th hour. Now, the midday sun does have an effect on it here for the refresh phase, as to add 1 cloud to this card. If there are 3 or more clouds, you flip it back to a perfect day. But as I've already gone ahead and resolved the refresh effect on the opposite side, I'm not going to be doing that again. Now, if that's incorrect, let me know in the comments down below. And then you can see we also have a check here as well to locate shade. If we take a focus test on the weather here to try to locate shade, then we can wait out the blaring sun. We get to add a cloud to this card and soothe 1 fatigue. So thematically, the clouds would start rolling back in again as you successfully do this test. And then eventually you're able to flip this back over to a perfect day and not have to deal with the sweltering sun. We now head into a brand new round, and we're going to go ahead and draw a path card and find out what we have. Off the top of the deck, we got ourselves the doe. Oh, look at that. It finally came through. This one's going to be within reach. As you remember from earlier in the video, the buck and the doe certainly have some challenge effect interactions, which will be very interesting. The prologue is telling us to head to the Lone Tree Station where Calypsa currently is traveling. Remember, she said she was going to go off on her own. We're also going off on our own to traverse there. In order to do it, we're going to need to put 4 progress on the boulder field. Now, with this being the end of the prologue, I don't just sit around and interact with everything that's here within reach. I don't have any obstacles in my path, so I could try and take 3 fatigue for all 3 of the presents that belong here within reach. So I could take that 3 fatigue right now off the top of the deck, put it in the fatigue stack, and then I could make a check to try to get progress on the boulder field in an aggressive way. And I think I'm going to actually go ahead and do it. So we're going to go ahead and pay 1, 2, and 3. We're not even going to bother trying to interact with these individuals. We're going to go right for the progress. So if we're going to traverse, we're doing a fit test. I'm going to put in 2 right off the hop here. Now, what else can we add in? Exploration icons, and we have a number of them. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this one for 1. I'm going to commit this one for 1 and commit this one for 1. I think that is all I have. So that's a total of 5 right there. Let's draw from the challenge deck and see whether we get what we need. We got an absolute 0 on this, and that's going to be 5, which is more than enough to get ourselves away from Boulder Field and all the way to the Lone Tree Station. I placed 5 progress on the location. Again, we cannot do it until we get to the travel phase at the end of the Ranger turn. We still have to resolve what we've done here. So we spent these. They're going to go off to the side. This here is going to sit here for a second. We're going to go ahead and do this challenge effect. But first, we'll take these 3 cards. They're going to go into the discard pile. Now, this icon right here does not exist up in the surroundings area along the way, but it does exist in multiple spots through within reach. So we can choose, being the lead ranger, which ones trigger first. So we look across the cards, and the challenge effects are going to trigger. Again, the lead ranger chooses how they trigger if there is multiple that can. In this case, only 1 is going to actually trigger because the first statement here says if there is an active prey. There is. We've got 2 active prey, so we can choose either one of those to be hit by this effect, whereas these ones are looking for an active predator, and there is not an active predator anywhere for both of them. So we're not going to be triggering these at all, but we're triggering this one. If we could trigger all 3, I could choose the order as the lead ranger. So if there's an active prey, exhaust it. So I'll choose one of these to exhaust. Then I'm going to add progress to it and a harm to this feature, both equal to the prey's presence. So basically a progress going on the one that I exhaust, and I'm going to choose to be the doe. So doe's going to get exhausted. A progress is going to go on it, working its way up to 4. And then 1 harm is going to go over here on the bramble. And that's essentially it. That's going to resolve the card. So this challenge effect can now be discarded. Back to the Ranger turn. In terms of playing a card or performing a test or resting, we're going to see down here that this card, the roll card, has an exhaust on it. When you perform a test, you can dodge 1 card. So this is something very useful. Not going to use it here in the prologue, but you're absolutely going to make use of effects like this by going ahead and exhausting this card to take that benefit. Now, in this case, I don't want to go any further because I have the progress that I need on the location. I'm going to choose to rest right now. And again, as I have an injury, I'm going to be taking a fatigue. So we're going to take 1 card off the top as part of the rest, and just like that, we are now able to travel. You emerge from a line of trees and find yourself walking through a vast rolling field. In the distance, you see the towering form of Lone Tree Station rising against a clear blue sky, and on the breeze, you smell the hint of something sweet. Is someone baking? And just like that, we've arrived at Lone Tree Station. I've gathered up all the path cards. So in other words, everything that was within reach is now back inside the path deck up there at the top right, all shuffled back together. And again, depending on the location that you arrive at, on the back side, there'll be information about the arrival and how to set up as you go forward. Now at this point, the prologue is nearly complete. You're going to take some time to tidy up the play area. You're going to gather your deck, your discard pile, your fatigue stack, and hand into your ranger deck and then set it aside. At this point, you're going to be instructed in step 23 and 24 of the prologue to go ahead and conclude deck building by choosing your ranger's outside interests. Now, depending on whether you're playing with additional rangers around the table or you're playing it solo, you're going to go down 2 different paths, and you'll follow step 24 thoroughly in order to get you to the very end of the prologue and then into Lure of the Valleys campaign, where you get to begin at mission number 1, which is the very first entry. And it's at this point in time where the training wheels fall off with the prologue as you transition into campaign play for Earthborne Rangers. Your ranger will be a complete deck at this point, and you'll be able to customize it how you wish, make some tweaks before you get into your very first campaign, very much like a Skyrim experience when you break out of prison and you have that final check as to whether you're happy with how things are currently set up. The prologue gets you to the doorstep, and from there, you can go into the valley and explore on your own. The valley is vast, there's lots to explore, lots to find, and lots of dangers which will pop up along the way, and also memorable moments to find. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if this was helpful to you guys that are getting your games in your hands as they arrive. Let me know what you're thinking about this one as you play it, and as always, keep on rolling solo.